Now, you know how much I love talking to the great Gen Xer to wrap up our week, Dave Rubin, and does he agree with me to not fall for the Barbie trap?
My main issue with, and I don't want to fall in the trap either, where, those of us on this side of the political aisle, where we then just become outraged the way we're always making fun of the other people become outraged. So I saw a lot of conservatives or right-leaning people screaming about Barbie and enraged and papers flying all over the place and all that stuff. And I was like, guys, everybody calm down a little bit. We don't want to become exactly what we are always trying to expose, the easily triggered, let's say. That being said, I think what a lot of people's frustrations are with Barbie or this movie is that, if you want to create the new story about an empowered girl who does whatever she wants and the guy who needs her, the flip of the script of what we usually get out of, say, Disney movies or traditional kids movies, why not just go ahead and create a new character, create a new story, create a new fantasy land? That's what artists and writers and movie makers used to do. They used to create new worlds. That's what Stan Lee did when he created the Marvel Universe. That's what George Lucas did when he created Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. It's whatever universe you like, whether it's a kid's universe or an adult universe, whatever. And unfortunately, instead of creating new, we sort of destroy the lore and the stories of the old. So it's not as if Barbie had some incredible backstory behind her. She'd be in her car and she was a nurse sometimes and she's hanging out with Ken. But instead of going for this hyper-political thing, which they've clearly at least attempted to do and try to flip, the feminist movement on its head and the patriarchy on its head, how about you just create new characters? But I know that would take work. That would take work. And that's the problem.
God forbid. Now, I love that the left is so afraid of Ron DeSantis that any and everything that happens in Florida, once it comes out of Florida, gets completely flipped as to what it really is and what its motivations are. Now, if you watch The View, and no one in Australia does, you would believe that they are teaching that the only thing about slavery was that it helped teach people to work. What are they actually teaching about slavery in Florida, Dave?
Paul, this story is so infuriating because it's exactly what they do with everything, and they do it over and over again, and the same people fall for it over and over again. Just like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida had nothing to do with gay people. Now they're pretending that in Florida we're teaching people that slavery was somehow good. It's complete nonsense. I actually linked to and read much of the Education Department edict on this on my show today. They are teaching actually quite a robust history of slavery, the horrors of slavery, of the post-slavery world, how it affected families and women and child rearing and all of these things. There is one tiny little reference to skills that slaves may have acquired while they were slaves, which they could have taken into the real world, which it's a true notion. It's upsetting to people, but it's true. Anyone that, it's not to say slavery is good, but if you became a blacksmith on a plantation, you had a set of skills that then you could then use in the real world. Now, I know that that's very upsetting to people because the left is really good at sort of thinking about things at that top layer, but not diving deep. But that is a minor footnote in an otherwise very, very robust history that we are teaching about slavery in Florida. But instead, we've got the vice president flying to Florida to tell everybody how racist we are, and they're talking about it on The View and on MSNBC and CNN.
While we've got sort of the nutters doing that, there is a new middle. It is, dare I say, an awful lot of people that sort of might be at the bottom end of boomers and all the way through Xers, who are the types of people who may well have called themselves of the left at one point in time, but the left is now so mad that just being logical, a former liberal, as they would say in the United States, somehow starts being interpreted as right-wing. This is a long way of saying Bill Maher, a man who is a great comedian, don't agree with his politics and often some of his takes, but he is a person who is consistent about an awful lot of things. And he sat down in the same chair that you did with the great Jordan Peterson, and it was fascinating to see at times him take him on, at times him getting steamrolled, and at times him being completely fascinated. What did you think of the great summit? Because, of course, it was Reagan and Gorbachev, but what about the summit now between Peterson and Maher?
I really thought it was quite enlightening, and I would recommend that anyone check it out because you think about it this way. You have on one hand, you have Bill Maher, a 67-year-old lifelong bachelor atheist, multimillionaire Hollywood celebrity. And then on the other hand, you have, I think Jordan's about 61 or so, but you have a guy who has preached marriage, who has talked about belief and religion and biblical stories. And so they're sort of, in one way, like in the most obvious way, they're complete polar opposites of each other. But they absolutely agree on the value of the individual. They absolutely agree on free speech. And to watch them dance in and out of the agreements and disagreements, really, when you take a guy, I would say Jordan Peterson, who has I think he has enlightened more people about the importance of belief than anyone, certainly in modern times. And Bill Maher, who's probably the most prominent atheist, who's pushed atheism more than anyone in modern times, sitting down together saying, hey, we're on the same side right now. Now, I'd love to see Bill Maher, as you know, get all the way over and vote for people that I think would defend his ability to be a liberal atheist. And maybe he will get there, maybe he won't. But the fact that they sat there in mutual respect, maybe with some disagreement, they didn't do too much on politics. It was mostly on philosophic and religious notion. I thought it was fantastic.